Hey everybody, it's Nathan and Jess Selove with another episode of Autism Actually Speaking. Today's going to be a little bit of a discussion between the two of us about a specific topic that both of us have kind of different levels of experience with, but we feel like it's something that should be addressed because it's definitely something that a lot of autistics are probably going to go through, and a lot of neurotypicals can probably relate to it too. So what are we talking about today, Jess?
Failure.
Failure. Specifically.
Or rejection.
So we're going to talk about being rejected from jobs. And we both kind of have different levels of experience with this.
I have been rejected many times. I have worked since I was 18, so we're almost in another year. We'll be coming up on 10 years of working life. And over that, I've experienced a lot of rejection, if you're talking specifically just related to my career. And I have even been laid off. I have had jobs that just didn't work out because they were not really a sustainable job. I have changed direction with where I want to go in terms of my career. So I've kind of had that experience of it.
So what advice would you personally give to other autistics who have experienced rejection from a job?
It is a common experience for people to face like rejection from a prospective job or even from maybe the education. I am 27 years old and I do not currently hold a degree. I have been to college. I have a lot of credits. I can't actually remember how many there are. Basically, I have almost the equivalent of an associate's with a lot of additional science courses thrown in there because I want to be a nurse. So that has kind of meant that I've really chased after the prerequisites so that I can go for a bachelor's nursing degree. That's my chosen path. I was not a good student. I'm married to some sort of freak prodigy.
Oh.
You are. Do you mind, young lady?
Blakey, what are you doing?
No.
Blake's right there.
Yeah. So if you're asking for advice, I would say that it's not really something that's kind of a one-size-fits-all, but I would say that my experience as an autistic, without knowing that I was autistic for most of my life, has really made it harder for me to feel as if I deserve to give myself another chance to go after the things that I want, which might resonate with some of you, especially those who were diagnosed later in life. Nathan's been diagnosed since he was 9,
Yep.
So he's been able to receive accommodations that I never did, and so we approach things differently, and I'm very accustomed to self-accommodating, which has mixed results. And Nathan is very accustomed to finding a path that accommodates his diagnosis.
This is one of the reasons why I made those videos that were, about specifically parents that have trouble accepting that their child is autistic, and also the one about people that feel like their own autism, about their own autism, that they don't deserve accommodation. So basically...
Well, I do want to point out that as a female autistic who grew up in a rural area in a lower socioeconomic class, I had virtually no chance of being properly diagnosed as a child.
That's why I talk a lot about on this channel about the importance of respecting self-diagnosis, because there are a lot of people that are self-diagnosed, but because they don't have access to a professional diagnosis because of where they lived, where they grew up. And that's not something that they should be faulted for.
The education level of those around them, too.
Exactly.
So a variety of things affected. Also, the time frame, this was 20 years ago, so this was not something that was as researched. That is now.
So what I would say is that one of the biggest things that's really important when, first off, trying to receive employment to begin with is if you are earlier in your life, you really do need to be proactive about requesting accommodations and understanding what accommodations you specifically need. I was diagnosed at a very, very early age, and I was able to have a pretty fast track through my education. I was able to go straight from high school to getting my bachelor's.
Maybe you want to talk a little bit about your own experience with rejection at what was for you kind of the first time in your adult life that you'd had this major rejection, and how your autism influenced how you reacted to that.
Yeah, I had really hoped that right out of graduate school that I would be able to get a full-time teaching job. And I applied to job after job after job after job. I must have sent in like 15 different applications.
I think you did more than that.
It is often very difficult to get full-time professor jobs.
In communication,
especially in communication, when you're fresh out of graduate school.
You recognized that it was possible, it wouldn't happen, and it seemed. I just think that what was more startling to you is that you had a plan, you had an expectation, and your plan was changed. Yeah. You had already planned how this would go, and you had a meltdown.
When I got like one final rejection from the final school that I was kind of holding out for, it felt like a huge slap in the face, and I ended up having a bit of a meltdown. Felt almost ready to just abandon academia. I was sitting in the woods, the woods that I played with when I was a kid, and I was feeling really despondent. Because of my autism, I like it when plans stay the way that happen the way that they were supposed to. And when this one detail got thrown off, it was a huge slap in the face.
One of the things that is a characteristic of autism is focusing a lot on details and having trouble with the bigger picture. But in that moment, it's so hard to focus on what is outside of your chosen path. It really was your meltdown talking. And
it was the meltdown talking.
So if I were going to offer advice as someone who's experienced that a few times, and more times than you have, it will feel like that for a while, and that's okay. You have to at least be able to get to the point where you decide, I have the possibility of feeling different about this tomorrow or the next day or in a week from now. If you're an autistic who's struggling with understanding where you go from this point, it might be helpful to kind of interrogate yourself about what other aspects of your life have changed that have been either neutral in that you're okay with what happened, or they've even been better. Yeah. So, you might think back to a time where you really thought you were going to go with a certain career path, or you thought you were going to be dating a specific person, or something that is big and kind of impacts every day of your life. And either something changed or you decided to change something, and you are at a place that is better, or you have actually realized that decision didn't really matter in the end. You're okay with what happened.
That's a really good point. And ultimately, I would say that things did really work out because I was able to pick up 2 adjunct positions that, at this point kind of equal full-time work. And that's a good opportunity for me to gain more experience to hopefully get a full-time position. And I was really appreciative for that opportunity, and I am doing what I love, which is teaching.
So you gained a path forward?
So I did gain a path forward. It wasn't the original path I had hoped for myself, but it was a path forward, even if you have been rejected.
So I would also offer, as sort of some additional resources. So I was actually laid off from a job that I'd had for 3 years, and that was really hard for me, suddenly being told you don't have your routine, you don't have that sense of security. I was really fortunate. I was able to get a job pretty quickly thereafter that was part-time, and after taking that job it was a little bit less money because I was working part-time, but it was still good money, and I started to go back to school. That was what I chose to do because I had already committed to that path. So I decided to throw my efforts behind going to school for more time. And I was, again, like I said, very lucky to be able to do that. Some things that are helpful are to consider what you can do to push forward. If you don't know what you want to do with your life, that's okay. A lot of people don't. A lot of people don't find careers completely satisfying. They get their satisfaction from other elements of their life. That's also okay. One thing that can always be helpful that I think Nathan would agree with is therapy. If you have the resources, if that is available in your area, there are many things that are kind of conditional about that. But if you can go to therapy, that really helps. Just having someone who can help you feel in a place of control in your life. What are you doing?
I'm trying to say, we've gone 20.
It doesn't matter. Your brain is disorganized.
No, it's very organized. It was looking at the time and basically being like, oh, look, we've been doing this for a while. We should wrap this up. Some other resources to think about, using other autistics, going on some blogs written by autistics who talk about these subjects, writing comments in the videos, in my own videos, because we often have a lot of very supportive autistics that will be very willing to comment and offer their own perspectives. So just try to utilize that. In the meantime, that's today's video. Thank you all for watching. If you liked this video, please give it a like, a share, and if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. Check out some of my other stuff, and if you want to support the channel in other ways, support me on Patreon. In the meantime, if you have any questions or topics you'd like addressed, please leave them in the comments below, or message me on my Facebook, also linked below. And remember, if in one of my last videos you found yourself completely distracted by a tiny little hair that was on my shirt, and you had to rewatch the video, and then comment about it telling me that you had to rewatch the video, you might be autistic.